Hello, and welcome to the WARC Podcast. I'm John Bizzell, and though I now lead content for WARC's sister site, Effie Insights, I have been lured back to host today's special episode where we focus on the winners of this year's Cannes Lions for Creative Strategy. I say lured back, we are recording this on the very last day of the week-long Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity, so it's possible that I was the only member of the team left standing to come into the studio. Luckily, at least two other people have survived, and they are my guests today, both of whom started this week locked in 2 days of judging for the Creative Strategy Award. On my right, the jury president, Sarah Lemarié, Chief Strategy Officer for Publicis France, and on my left, jury member Dan Hill, Global Chief Strategy Officer for Wieden+Kennedy.
If you're listening to this podcast, you'll know that WARC is the home of leading effectiveness thinking. And now, we're teaching you everything you need to know about the fundamentals of strategy. WARC Strategy Fundamentals is WARC's new digital course for junior or entry-level strategists. You'll learn from award-winning case studies and hear directly from top strategists and WARC's own experts, giving you the latest industry insights alongside proven, practical frameworks. Sharpen up your skills to excel in 2026 with WARC Strategy Fundamentals. Available now at warc.com/learning.
Sarah, Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Sarah, let me start with you, because not only do you already have hundreds of industry awards lining your shelves, including, I think, the 6th Cannes Grand Prix picked up last night for the AXA 3 Words campaign. Congratulations on that. But you've also chosen winners, both here in Cannes for Effie and even, I think, for WARC back in the day. This year, you got to lead the jury as the president. Did that give you a different perspective on things?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, it was an incredible experience, and I feel extremely lucky. It was a jury composed of 100% strategists. So it was a very exceptional kind of jury, because usually you have a mix of strategists, a mix of people coming from the brands, a mix of creatives, and here to be only planners judging strategy, judging creative strategy, it was absolutely incredible. And you can imagine that the discussion went late into the night, because planners, they can never shut up. No, I'm just joking. The discussion went so deep in each of the cases, and it was so passionate, and everyone brought such a strong point of view to the table, and also a very diverse point of view to the table, that honestly it was fascinating. And I think that for Dan, without Dan, it would have been a very different jury experience, because Dan, he was always raising the bar. He was always playing devil's advocate to the previous point that was made. And so I was absolutely sure everything was going to get checked and covered and advocated for. So thank you, Dan, again for this.
I was annoying.
Absolutely
Well,
not.
let's have some mutual appreciation then. Dan, this was your first time judging in Cannes. So was it what you expected, and how was Sarah as the jury president?
Sarah was annoying as well. No, Sarah was very good. No, amazing ability, the depth of understanding of the cases, and able to not only orchestrate and coordinate the room, but make us see the work in different lights was amazing. To do those two things at once is like completely ambidextrous in terms of thinking. One is basically crazy project management, and one is strategic ability and like education, really. My other observation would be that the best strategists are they're persuasive. You know, they're not just smart or creative; they're persuasive. And I think you could see that in the work and the way the cases were written, and obviously in the impact they had. But you could also see that in the debates in the room. I was like delighted to have my mind changed at least 3 or 4 times. Maybe not so much after 11 p.m. But yeah, it was amazing to see people able to kind of engage with each other and bring each other on a journey. So that was good.
And to build on that, and to build on what you're saying, I think sometimes a misconception that we could clarify is that we think we are judging, but in fact it's more that we are creating a body of work. We're trying to create together a body of work that is going to set a new benchmark, so that hopefully next year we're going to do better, we're going to be sharper, we're going to also have more fun with our clients because we're going to start on this new, very strong foundation of this body of work. And so this is what we discussed when we started the discussion. Together, we're not just judging, we're going to put our names, so it's a big responsibility, on this body of work that is going to set a higher standard. And one of my favorite moments, to build on what you were saying, is on shortlist day, you can bring back work that didn't make it to the long shortlist, work that you've scored very high in the first round and then we lost track of. And it's one of the best times because you ask each member of the jury to do a real pitch for the case. So sometimes you can even say go stand up in front of the screen and convince us and make a case. Honestly, this is one of my favorite moments in the 2 days of the jury. And actually, hats off to Dan because he was the one, and I was so happy that you did because I was waiting for this case to be brought back. He was the one who brought back the Faroe Island space program idea that ended up being a gold. And he did a brilliant pitch and it was amazing. And the room was absolutely convinced. And then everybody voted yes.
That's one of the most brilliant things about the judging in Cannes, actually. It's not just a numbers game. This is why we bring everyone here to meet in a room, because you really can change people's minds, and work that might not have been seen just on the basis of a score does end up doing very well. So you've got this room full of planners who like to talk. You've already said, Dan, there was a lot of debate. So how do you bring a group like this to a consensus on what good looks like for creative strategy so that you can judge the work against that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's very important to set the vision. So this starts very early in the process. Before we are in the room, we have calls between ourselves and we set up the intention that we want to have for this jury and the criteria. So basically, this year, I've been growing more and more worried about the fact that the talk on the industry and on AI is kind of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you've seen this study that in the US that says that 91% of agency leaders or agency seniors think that they will make cuts in the workforce because of AI replacing people. So the problem with having this kind of message is that it can be super discouraging for the young blood. And what is going to happen is that we're going to miss out on some very strong talents who are just not going to apply. So I think what we wanted to do with this jury was to create vocations in strategy, inspire young people to get into strategy by essentially showing off our craft. So we set that ambition. Okay, we have to raise the standard not just for our colleagues and the industry and our clients. We have to raise the standards because Cannes itself is an incredible inspiration platform. You have young kids going on the website and scrolling and looking at the palmarès, at the selection, and we want to be able to capture some of these talents on the strategy track. So it was very self-serving because we want to capture the young talents, but this is what it was. And so the idea was that we would be super mindful of having a very diverse selection of ideas that reflect the full scope of strategy, basically. So more insight-related work, ideas that wouldn't exist at all without an insight, ideas that wouldn't exist without a smart reframing of a problem, ideas that wouldn't exist without kind of a reinvention of a whole category. And in the end, this is what we managed to do. But when we were judging the work, I think that having this framework was helping us pick ideas that were really essentially strategic at the core, because there can be no hesitation. It's not like, okay, this is this creative idea and we are going to backwrite the strategic case study. No. without the insight or without the reframing or without, for the Faroe Island space program, without the complete reframe of the category, would that idea have existed? So it really helped us be super focused, on the strategic skill.
The only thing I'll probably add to that is I think we ended up with all the winners being proof of human ingenuity, but also just human empathy. And in the world of AI, that empathy is really important, and also self-awareness. I think a lot of the winning case studies were very self-aware, aware of the brand's context in the world. And AI can do a lot, but I'm told sentience isn't yet here. So I think that's quite reassuring, not just for the world, but for strategists.
Good news, decades of benchmarking, insights and best-in-class case studies are now available at the push of a button. Lions Intelligence is the new operating system for creative marketing excellence. With state-of-the-art AI technology and established marketing insights from the WARC, Contagious IQ and WARC, all in a single adaptive workspace that evolves with your thinking. Save hours of manual work and share your thinking with clarity and confidence. Lions Intelligence is where groundwork becomes great work. Insight, strategy, creativity, execution, all in one place. To learn more, check out intelligence.lions.co.
Well, you mentioned the winners, so let's finally get into talking about some of the work that you chose, and we might as well go right to the Grand Prix. This went to Heineken for the pub that refused to die. Why did this come out on top?
Every cases that rose to the top, obviously, they were brilliant strategic demonstrations. They had perfect alignment between the challenge or the objective, the strategic idea, the creative idea, the execution, etc. But this one, it really came together beautifully because it went all the way into inspiring a creative execution that was not just rationally right, but emotionally very powerful. So if you want if you want like an example of how we thought about each case, it looks like this. So for instance, you have this massive business problem. Ireland, it's Guinness territory. It's Guinness country. And you have Heineken. You have a global brand, that has no root in the country. And they want to work on the brand equity and the preference and get into Irish people's hearts. So they have this platform, for the love of pubs, where they are working on the how to save pubs locally, because they are part of this social fabric of the small communities where churches are closing, petrol stations are closing, everything
Shops,
is closing.
post offices, they say in the case,
Yeah,
don't they?
exactly. Everything is closing. And the pub is not just a place where you have a pint. It's a place where you have your mates and you have your community and your neighbor and you work on neighbor problems and solving them, etc. So it's a social problem and they fix it with a social solution, because then it's about saving the bars by having this community ownership to take on pubs, because this is Ireland, pubs. And then, but it doesn't stop there. They build on this platform that is going to be kind of like a game plan of all the knowledge you need to have as a community to take on a pub. So the lawyering skills, how to apply for a bank at the loan, how to set up the system with Heineken knowledge. All of this infused with Heineken expertise. And at the end of this, the ultimate creative execution that is bringing everything together is a beautiful piece of documentary, a 7-minute long documentary about the original Kiltilly 26, who took over this pub together, and you have their journey and you have their struggles and you have their beautiful bond. And this is the piece of work that then they toured all around Ireland to be able to inspire communities to take over pubs. And now you have 5 communities from 10 to 100 people who were inspired to take over a pub and are in the process of taking over a pub. And it's not just about that, obviously. The impact is way bigger because everybody talked about that in Ireland. It got massive PR. The numbers on the PR are massive. When you look at it from a European perspective and not a US perspective, it's absolutely massive, especially since in Ireland, I don't know if everybody has the context, but people don't talk about brands on TV shows. It's not a thing. It's not the US. So if you have journalists who are having talk shows about brands and role of brands in their communities, it's a huge, huge deal. So this is, you see why it rose to the top. It was just strategically perfect. But in the end, I think it's the emotion of the piece that brought us together and made us feel, not just in our brain, but in our gut, that we had the right Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great strategy, but the story was also very well told. The case study film was killer. And sometimes you get style over substance. This was the both. The story was very clear strategically, but to Sarah's point, it was very emotive as well, and it really brought you on that journey. So it was great.
The film's really worth watching. Sounds though, Dan, that you went to bat pretty hard for this Faroe Islands campaign. Is that the one you came thinking, I wish I'd worked on that? Or what stood out?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's super simple. It's and it's playful. It's B2B, but it's playful, which is what I think I liked about it most. It's the reframing of a technology, a sustainable energy technology, tidal energy, which is nothing new. In fact, it's kind of less fashionable these days than it has been for a while with investors and policymakers, than some other newer technologies. But the case was solved by a really kind of simple observation. It's one of those ideas that is, I think, kind of dumb, clever. It was the observation that actually this technology, yes, it's tidal technology, but actually when you think about it a bit differently, it's powered by the moon. And what's cooler and more interesting to investors in the world right now than space technology? Nothing. So it was a really simple, dumb, genius idea that unlocked a completely new way for the company to think of this technology and itself, and then a body language and a design system that all flew out of that very simple kind of like, that sounds stupid. There's a thing at Wieden+Kennedy where I've worked with at least 2 or 3 creatives who you talk about an idea and they go, yeah, that's dumb. And they mean it's good. And I think that's kind of an example here. It's very disarming, and it just sets the ball rolling in the right direction. And it's very efficient. It's a tiny shift. There was no change in technology. There was no change to the kind of infrastructure. It was one shift that happened in a room, in someone's brain or a collection of brains, and it unlocked an incredible amount of value for the business.
Great.
It's funny that you think that it's dumb clever. I just think it's clever because sometimes the answer or the truth is like lying right in front of you, but nobody's seeing it. And honestly, when you're really thinking about it, it's so timely. It's so timely to do this move because everybody is like, all these investors and all the sexiness of investing into tech, it's on space and not looking in the direction of our own planet that is not doing very, very well. So even the reframe is not just like it's not just a quick PR hook. Like philosophically, it's the whole thing. It's like, how do we reorient it? How do we redirect our attention from thinking about space as the new technological and the innovation frontier, and looking back to Earth, because in the end we have to invest in these technologies because from an ecological standpoint we are not doing very, very well. So to me it's clever.
Yeah, it is clever. It's just emotional rather than deeply intellectual. It hooks people with an idea that's already in their head and repositions it. It was also fascinating to hear how many stakeholders they had to bring on that journey, from industrial partners to governments. And again, maybe going back to the point at the beginning, the ability of a strategist or a team to not only unlock something, but to then bring people on the journey. Like, there's plenty of great ideas that get left behind, and that brought everyone with it.
Yeah. And on this, I mean, Dan is absolutely right. I don't know if you have an idea. It's B2B. It's B2B, and it's like intense innovation, technology. So the agency had to convince first the client, but then all of their technological partners, and then the government. I mean, I would have loved to see that pitch.
It's interesting you say dumb strategy, because it's it's sort of easy to make a dumb strategy feel smart, but it's much more important to make a smart strategy feel simple. Yeah.
I'm not saying. Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Just to be clear, I'm not saying it's stupid. Yeah, absolutely right. There's plenty of dumb strategies that are just dumb. This is a dumb, clever one.
Yeah, it's a simple one for sure. And I think to be simple, you have to be extremely smart.
Sarah, you already brought AI into the room, and we know it's been all over the conference program this year. Specifically here, though, when I spoke to the jurors from last year's Creative Strategy Award on the pod, they talked a lot about how they felt the work was starting to show a link between AI and human craft. So not replacing humans, but finding a way for them to work together. And I just wondered if a year later we're seeing an evolution of that relationship in any of the work that you looked at.
Yes. So for sure, it's been a thread that was in a lot of cases. But then there are like two answers that we can bring to your question. When AI is just part of the story or part of the solution, or when it's the whole story. So maybe for Claude, we put it like on the side because there was a Claude case that was amazing. Dan will probably want to talk about it. But I would say as a thread, it was more part of the story. So for example, on the Grand Prix, on the pub that refused to die, the whole system that they build, the platform, the learning platform, to bring the knowledge of the Kiltilly's original 26 to everybody who wants to take over a pub. Originally, you had these videos and these online lessons, but you could also call them the original 26. There was their number and you could call them. But apparently, Irish people are very chatty, very phony. And so they were getting harassed. They were getting so many calls that then they had to build an AI on the platform to be able to answer most of people's questions by using the content of the learning platform. So, and the content of the answers that had already been given. So here you can see clearly AI, you have a magnificent collective human story, and AI is just part of the story. For the Dove Real Review case, you can see it in two completely different ways. You can see it as an idea to feed the LLMs and to get recommended by LLMs, or you can think about it as an idea in itself that would have been incredibly good even without the LLM story. Because at the origin, the Dove Real Reviews is just a brilliant strategy on the Playful effect that is reinvented in the age of distrust of online reviews, but it's the Playful effect. And this idea, this strategic idea, could have existed maybe 30 years ago. The fact that it's also going to help you get into Reddit and that get into the LLMs and that have and be recommended as a product and as a brand in the LLMs is just an additional layer that makes it particularly timely, but it's not the whole story. And most of the time, this is what happened. We had a brilliant strategic idea, and there was just this additional layer that made it, part of its time.
Anything to add there, Dan?
Well, I just think it's really interesting when we talk about those case studies, Dove and Claude, that they're kind of looking at things from opposite ends in some ways, or at least a combination of classic and new technologies. So on the one hand, Dove is, an fairly old school CPG product. It's a new SKU, but essentially it's a CPG product, and leaning into those new media habits and choices, as Sarah says. But on the other end, Claude is a new generation product using some quite classical and brilliantly chosen media and cultural moments. And I think what they both have is brilliant self-awareness of who they are and the context that they find themselves in. And I thought that was really interesting.
Great. Well, we'll have a lot of people listening who might be considering entering the Creative Strategy Lions next year. So another element of the judging is seeing the process of the awards. So any advice for people entering? What could entrants do better next year, maybe?
So Well, I'm going to go back to the basics and then maybe two additional pieces of advice. So first of all, it's creative strategy. So writing the entry, the written entry, not just the video case, is very, very important because strategy is your words. So I would really advise not using AI to do that. And if, for instance, English is not my first language. So if I want to have a very well-written case, I'm probably going to be using a bit of AI. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to write my full strategic story with my own words in French, and then I will use AI to translate it. But I won't use AI to generate text, because when you use AI, it's really going to dilute your point of view. It's going to dilute your conviction. AI has a million ideas, generates a million words. It has no opinion, no conviction. And so it doesn't even understand the principle of a conviction. So when you input your conviction into an AI, it's going to kill it. And we saw it happening again and again and again. And then you have this mush of text that is very hard to interpret as a planner because you can't connect to the intention of the planner behind the work. So I would, it's not an anti-AI point that I'm making. You can definitely use it to write your entry, but you have to be super mindful of doing it this way. Then obviously you have to tell a strategic story that is super consistent from a challenge to insight to idea to results. And I would also like use a metaphor to talk about what we are looking for so that you know what you have to bring to the paper. It's a bit like, the Fosbury flop?
Yes.
Okay. So it's the first guy who does, how do you say, like it's not height jumping? How do you call that?
High jumping. Yes.
Height jumping. And he's the first guy who invented the fact that you're jumping with your back facing the bar and not your belly. They used to be jumping with their belly on the bar. But so the Fosbury flop, this is what we are judging. It's a first. We are looking for strategic firsts. So is your strategy fresh, new, breakthrough? This is what we want to judge. Obviously, new can be interpreted in different ways. It can be a pairing of two already seen approaches. It can be a spin on an approach we had already seen. What we're looking for is a first that is going to elevate creativity afterwards, but that is, original in its essence. So it's not an effectiveness paper. We're not judging how high people jumped. We are judging or evaluating, rather, the Fosbury flop.
The technique.
Yeah. So the Fosbury flop, not just the results. That being said, in creative strategy, 20% of the grade is the results. So we also draw attention to the fact that you have to make a very strong case with the results. And the results is not just a list of numbers. You can tell a beautiful story in the results. You can really narrate it and show the impact it had on people, on the reach, on how they feel about the brand. You can really bring out the story of a case in the results. So you shouldn't keep it for last. You should maybe start with that.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think there are lots of great strategies that wouldn't win in this award, and so it's useful to know that there are lots that do. But really, this isn't the same as what's the best strategy. We're looking for some degree of novelty or innovation or newness. That's what this award is set up to find and reward. And I think within that, there's always therefore some degree of playfulness in the thinking. I think that's common to most great strategies, but in this category especially, it's part logic but also part imagination.
Great. Well, I think that's fantastic advice to end on. Listeners, start working on your Fosbury flops for 2027. Sarah, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll wrap things up there. And listeners, thank you for joining us. You can check out the work from Lions if you'd like to see the creative strategy winners for yourself, and they'll be coming to WARC soon. You can also check out the podcast feed for loads more voices from WARC's team here in Cannes, including a deep dive with some of the judges for the creative effectiveness category. And if you don't subscribe, well, sort that out too. Goodbye.